Hey guys, this is a video about how to go about constructing your hiring matrix, and I really hope this one's going to be shorter than the other ones that I record. I talk way too long, and it's even worse when you're in the classroom with me. Be glad you're taking this online. Just to kind of give you an overview of the hiring matrix, what I envision for the matrix is a printable document worksheet that you're able to evaluate candidates real time as you're interviewing them so that you can remember later things that are important, and so that you can have some sort of a mathematical quantitative approach to valuing the candidates for comparison side by side. So what my vision is for this, I think in various videos that I've recorded over time about this, I note that this is an exercise for our class that you may never, ever see in real life. But this class is a simulation of the workplace, and being able to do what this hiring matrix is trying to get you to do is a very good exercise, whether you actually do it on paper or not in the real world. Because what this hiring matrix is intended to do is to get you to think about what's important and figure out how to evaluate that concept when it's presented to you. So it does two things. Number one, it really sets the standards in your head that you're looking for. And number two, it helps you to document the performance on those standards so that you can adequately compare candidates later and defend your decisions later. And I like to compare it perhaps to when you're dating. You know, you're going, maybe you're going into the dating setting looking for a spouse, and so you probably have in your mind a kind of a checklist of things you're looking for, and it could include anything that's important to you: how they dress, how they talk, how they look, their intelligence, their humor, whatever's important to you. You've kind of got this checklist in your head, and every time you go out on a date with somebody new, you're kind of comparing them to that checklist in your head, looking for somebody that checks off the most boxes, or if it may not be, are they funny or are they not, but are they really funny or kind of funny or sort of funny? And that goes into your decision about when you have finally met the right person. You might also compare it to buying a car. It's unlikely that you just drive to a car lot and walk around until something really jumps out at you. You probably have an idea of the kind of car you want, the age of the car if you're buying used, the mileage on it, the quality ratings on it. The price is certainly important. Color may be important. Features like sunroof may be important. The point being, with both of these examples, is that the clearer you are on what an acceptable choice looks like, of what you're looking for, the easier it is to find it when you see it. So what I'm asking you to do in this hiring matrix is basically to make a list of all the things that you think are important that should factor into your hiring decision, and then find a way to evaluate them. So what I'm going to do is, step number one is have you just pull out a piece of paper and jot down ideas on what's important to you. If you're hiring for the warehouse clerk, or if you're hiring for the administrative assistant, what things are important to you that should go into this decision? If we look at it like it's a mathematical formula with lots of parentheses, additions, and multiplications and all that kind of stuff, what does that formula look like? So brainstorm first. What's important? And it may be things related to the resume. It may be things related to the cover letter. It may be things related to the actual context of the interview and how they looked and how on time they were and how happy they seemed, whatever. It certainly has a lot to do with how they answer various questions in the interview. It may have something to do with what happened after the interview. It may have some intangible kinds of things. But what's important, if you can come up with a list of 15 or 20 things that you want to remember to look for, when you build this matrix and you figure out how to recognize it and evaluate it, then it becomes much more simple to make the right choice. So step one is brainstorm all of the valuable things to you that may not matter to somebody else. For example, it may really make a lot of difference to you if they have spelling errors on their resume, but that may not matter at all to somebody else. So if that's important to you, put that in your list of brainstorming. and think of as many things as you possibly can. So what I'm going to do now is go to screen only and let you look at an example. And I think that I have loaded this file into the assignments for this particular, the Dropbox for this particular assignment, for you to use as a sample. And I really hesitated to load that because I don't want to give you any preconceived ideas of what's right and what's wrong. This is just an example. And when I review this thing after you submit it, I'm going to make some suggestions to you that you can completely ignore. And just right off the bat, from this example, I'd say that you don't need, I'm pulling the wrong thing here. I should be pulling it from this screen. I don't think that you need all this at the top. You probably don't even need this at the top. And space is a premium on this document because ideally it's the front and back. You don't want multiple pages of this per candidate. You might just be able to put the name of the candidate in the upper corner. You know your name, you know what position it's for. Maybe you say, John Smith, account executive, or whatever. You probably don't need the date, the name, the position, the time. Hopefully you don't need the key because you know this is a pretty standard key. 5 is great and 1 is poor. So you could eliminate all of this up here. But in this particular example, this is an actual hiring matrix that somebody created for a prior class. The idea was when they're thinking about the resume, they want to look for these things because to them, being concise and well written is important. That could make the difference between two candidates. Having the appropriate skills, having the appropriate experience, having the training and education, having a resume that's consistent throughout. So I think maybe aesthetics or something like that, style and formatting, is important. And they're going to rank each one of these things 1 to 5. And I would say in this particular setting, one of the things that's missing up here is a space for notes. So if I were redesigning this, I'd have individual blocks here rather than a big block, and I'd have each of these things over here with room to write comments. This score could be very, very small. It only takes a little bit of space to put a 5 or a 3, so you could gain some space here, maybe not even put the heading of score. You know that this is the category, you know that this is the notes, and you know that this is a score, so eliminate that block and have more space. But are there other things? Do you want to evaluate the cover letter? There may be even more things here. Concise and well written may be 2 different things. You don't specifically in here talk about the aesthetics, about the structure, about spelling errors, missing dates, anything like that, but those may be things that are important to you. So list as many things as you can think of that are important under resume and under cover letter perhaps. Nowhere in here toward the bottom, the interview behavior. We'll get to that in a second. I would suggest that every question you ask is important, or you wouldn't be asking, or at least every question related to the resume itself or the job. If you have questions about the individual KSAOs, the individual essential functions, you probably, I would think, want to evaluate each question independently. They might have done really well on question 1 and poor on question 2. And so each one of those things being evaluated individually creates distinction between your candidates. So I would suggest that you find a way to put the text of the question in this box somehow so that you don't have a document in front of you with the question and a second document with this matrix. If it's all on one page, it's better. Have a place for notes, and then maybe you eliminate this column altogether, expand this margin this way, and just put a little 5 out in the very far margin here, or a little 5 out here in this little margin here, but put as much room as you can for notes. Probably a block for every question you ask, unless maybe it's one of those icebreaker type questions. But if you say, if it's important to you that you do well on the question, what's your greatest strength, then allow that in here to make some notes and to scale it. So I would say some sort of an entry line for each one of the questions you're going to ask, 5 of them or 50 of them or however many questions there are. And then what else unrelated to the actual interview questions in the resume and cover letter, something related to the behavior. You might have something, let's see, they say articulate, direct, the body language, energy, thought process, and likable, that they're going to rate 1 to 5. I would say that things that aren't included here were they on time? If they're not on time, that might make a big deal. Were they dressed professionally? Did they smile a lot? Did they say and stall a lot, like they had no idea what kind of an answer to give you? Those things would be important to me, but they may not be important to you. But again, I put down everything related to the interview that you could think of that was important enough that could sway your decision if one candidate outperformed everybody else or significantly underperformed everybody else. Then post-interview, follow-up and timely responses, that might be two different things. Maybe you put in there that it's important, and you would give consideration more so to one candidate who took the time to write a thank you note as opposed to one who didn't. Maybe that doesn't matter, but it's bonus points. Intangibles, what's my gut feeling about this? If you have some questions in your question set about person job fit or person organization fit or whatever, you probably want to score them somehow, but a lot of that may be intangibles. So again, the point of this hiring matrix is that you think through what's important when you're making a decision. You kind of figure out what it looks like, so you recognize it when you see it, and you figure out a way to put a score on it. In this case, a score from 1 to 5. Maybe it's yes or no, and it's 5 points for yes and 0 points for no, or whatever. Maybe there's a combination on here of some yes, no's that are all or nothing, and there are some graded things like you did a 3 on this and a 4 on that. You design for this particular project a hiring matrix that helps you mathematically indicate the distinctions between 2 different candidates or 5 different candidates. Okay? Then you put this thing together and you submit it as an attachment to your Dropbox. I'm going to be looking as I'm grading not so much for did we agree on what's important or not, but do I think that you have created a document that really helps you to defend for legal reasons why you chose this candidate over that candidate. Again, if I were a candidate and I wanted to claim that you didn't hire me because of my religion, a document like this will help me to defend myself as the company, to say, you know, it just so happened that he's Baptist or he's a fundamental Christian or whatever the case may be, Muslim or whatever the case may be. The reality is that I scored each one of my candidates on these things related to the job, all of the questions, the essential functions, the KSAOs, the intangibles. None of that had to do with religion. And the reason he didn't get the job is because he scored an 80 on this, and the candidate that was selected scored 102. How can you argue between an 80 and 102? So that's the why. That's kind of the how. I'm going to really, really, really strongly encourage you that you don't go out there and download this template and just fill in the blanks on it, that you design your own template. And it may look a little bit like this, but hopefully it's going to be better than this. If you just simply take this and change a few of the words, I'm going to say, I don't know that this really helps you to make a decision in your case. It doesn't seem to be all inclusive. It doesn't seem to address everything that's going to be important. So again, here is 13 minutes or so on this particular video. Hopefully you understand clearly what I'm looking for. And again, I will say it, you may never ever do this on a piece of paper in real life. Those of you who are recruiters probably will say, we've never done this and we make good decisions. Bully for you for making good decisions. Even if you've never made one of these things on paper, I bet when you go into your interview, you have an idea of what you're looking for. So you've done this thing in your head, even if you've never done it on a piece of paper. I've had folks in previous classes that say it was an interesting exercise, but it's not practical. And I might agree with you. Your company may never do this. There may not ever be a company you work for that does this. But I've had a lot of people that have said, this really helped me to crystallize what I'm looking for. And I don't have to think back after the fact and decide what I liked and didn't like. I was able to do it real time. And if anybody had ever challenged me on why I hired Judy instead of Sam, I could have gone back to these sheets and shown them, look at all the areas that she outperformed him in the context of knowledge, skills, and abilities or essential functions. And it becomes very defensible, I think. So that's what we're looking for. That's what I hope that you have got a clear image in your head as to what you need to do on this assignment, and that you're going to be able to turn in over. You're going to have a couple of weeks to work on this. Don't rush into it. Put a lot of thought into this. Go through several different versions of the document. Tweak it a little bit here and there until it becomes the most functional document you can get. The main ideas of this is that you're going to have room to make notes, and you're going to have some sort of a way that you can provide a score. So the more room that you can dedicate on this form to providing notes and to putting in a score, the better I think you're going to be. All right, that's going to be it for now. Let's go back to camera. Let's turn off the recording. If you have questions, shoot me an email or something so that you know exactly what it is to do and you do it well. That's it for now.